And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
I want to break free. I want to break free.
That about sums it up, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Welcome to The Law Show. We're talking about the breakdown of relationships and how difficult and confusing it can be. It basically falls in The Law Show under family law. Or the breakups of families, I guess is a better way to put it. David Halkett, partner at McQuarrie-Hunter, is here, and Leah Donaldson, associate at McQuarrie-Hunter. And you have a unique sort of firm in that you have a full-service firm, but you have the 3 specialists in your department, right?
That's correct. We have the entire 15th floor of the Central City Tower in Surrey, and we have the 3 lawyers in family law, me, Leah, and Sarah. And we also have a large corporate department, real estate, just corporations, corporate work itself, plus estate department, plus we also have commercial litigation, PI, defense work, everything. So we're a full range.
And is it uncommon to have a family law division inside a bigger firm?
It is. It's most family law lawyers work in a boutique, and as Leah and I, we've commiserated over the years that sometimes the reason that happens is that we're such a unique area of law. Other lawyers don't understand what we have to go through. It's just one of those weird things.
And why is that?
I think it involves a lot more emotion. So it's not just about business. It's just not just about money. It's about emotions and family, the thing that's most close to you.
Yeah, the base things of everyone's life is you get married, you have your children. That's what we deal with.
Yeah, and that's you don't get more core than that, right?
Exactly.
So now, Leah, how did you get into this part of law? Did you say right at the beginning, I want to become practice in family law?
I didn't know. I knew I wanted to be a litigator. I knew that I didn't want to.
And a litigator means you go to court.
Yeah, a litigator means you do go to court. So family law is kind of an interesting area of the law where you do some what we call solicitor work, which is drafting agreements and helping negotiate things.
The paperwork side of the business.
The paperwork side of the business. But we also do go to court if necessary. So family law is kind of a neat area in that you kind of cover both. But yeah, definitely I like dealing with people. So you get to know people very well in family law, more so than, say, doing real estate. And
when Sarah's been on, she said there's a whole lot of paperwork in family law, right?
Oh, yeah. There definitely is. There's financial statements. There's long list of documents, reviewing a lot of agreements, drafting your pleadings. So their affidavits are huge, like for court applications. So there's a lot of document preparation in family for sure.
So,
David, you got into family law over 20 years ago. Do you have new young lawyers that are men that are saying, okay, this is an option for me, where maybe they hadn't thought of it in the past? They've always thought, I'm going to be the downtown guy. I'm going to be the,
Yeah, I think so. When I go to the local bar meetings, there's a lot of young guys who do it. It's always predominantly female, certainly in the Valley, but there's a lot of young male family law lawyers out there now. So it's not as stigmatized, I don't think, as it was 20-something years ago, that was the area you didn't want to go to.
Yeah. So when you have somebody come into your office, is there a checklist that you say before they even come in? Or do people just say, I need to see you now? Or how does it, you're kind of people must be a bit desperate, right?
They are. We do say to bring certain pieces of information, but often people will just come without anything and they just want to have a discussion, and that's fine too. Ideally you would have some information, but mostly people just want to have a discussion about what they're concerned about, what their rights and their obligations are.
And do you have situations where you say, well, I've kind of dealt with a similar kind of case in the past? Does that help people, or do they want to, they like knowing that they're in a situation similar to somebody else? Somebody else has gone through this before?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question, Zach, because I'll say, look, every case is unique, because unlike with other areas where you do a whiplash case, they're all pretty well the same. We have all their different personalities, but a lot of the issues come up in each case. So I'll tell a lot of clients that your case is not atypical. And they all seem to like that they realize that they're not different from anyone else. They every case is different, the facts are a little different, but a lot of ones have the house, they have the pension, they have 2 children, the dog, etc., and they feel that then they feel that we're not so bad that we're getting divorced, because we have people come in that are really embarrassed that they're actually going through divorce.
And I guess sometimes you're the first person that they're telling this to, right?
Yep.
Often.
Yeah, they haven't even told their mother or their their best friend. You're the first person.
Exactly.
And is that often a good way to go about it? Is to find out where you stand instead of saying, "That's it, I'm leaving him," or "I'm leaving her," "I'm breaking up." To find out where you stand, because most people probably go about it the other way around, right?
They do, and I do think it's better to sit down with a lawyer, discuss the possible outcomes and what might happen. And I do think that often, I mean, it's great to get support from friends and family, but people all have a story that they know of someone who had this happen to them, and unfortunately, you need to know the facts of each case. So sometimes it doesn't help when people talk to friends and family and kind of get the horror stories before they come in and just actually find out what the situation
Yeah,
is.
because one of the things, the perception is that you're going to get divorced and one side's going to get cleaned out, right?
Exactly.
And in the past, it was typically the man, and that's changing now as women have, more professional jobs, or there's more women going into law and to medicine and what have you. So those perceptions, people think they're going in thinking, "Oh, I'm going to lose everything," but in the eyes of the law, that isn't the case, right?
No, you divide it as if we have sexless judiciary. They just look at it and
There's
this is how we're
two
gonna divide it.
people.
Exactly. The person who earns more is going to pay more and is going to feel they got screwed over, but that's only because our law is such that we equalize the incomes and standard of living the longer the relationship.
And they don't care, and that's not based on gender.
No, it isn't.
No.
So
It
now you
isn't.
have people that are making more money, they're just paying more.
I will say that, in my experience, men tend not to want to ask for spousal support nearly as much as the reverse, because there's a lot of people out there that still have the perception that the man shouldn't be getting supported by the wife. Whereas I tell them, look, it's the same. If it was reversed, you'd be paying, so you're entitled to it. The law doesn't say the man pays the wife. It just says the higher income earner will pay to the other.
And that old saying that I need to be kept into the lifestyle to which I'm accustomed, is that something that is, like there's the difference between, you're not going to have the same lifestyle because you don't have a common amount of money. So
I mean,
things will change. You're not going to, your life
things
isn't.
change. So
Yeah.
I always tell people that if you added your incomes together, you were doing really well because you only had one house to pay for.
Yeah.
If you add them together, which you're still going to basically do, but you're living in two separate houses, your standards of living are both going to go down.
Yeah.
And instead of maybe having one car, now you have to have two cars.
Right, exactly.
Those sorts of things.
And when you think there's then 2 summer holidays with the kid over the year instead of just the one that you were doing. So it does cost more to live in 2 separate houses, and they have to realize they can't have everything they had before, but the parties should have a similar standard of living between the 2 new houses.
Say that again. The party should
Have a similar standard of living between the 2 houses. So if one party earns X dollars and the other's Y, they try to equalize it so that the standard of livings are the same in both houses.
I see. Okay.
For a certain period of time. After that's
Yep.
the basic idea behind spousal support.
Now, how long do you have to pay for? I mean, there's another misconception that you have to pay forever or until the other person meets somebody new. It kind of seems unfair that, somebody who was married for 5 years is still paying 30, 40 years later. Does that happen?
That's highly unlikely unless there were certain other factors that the person assumed, like the age of the party or if there was a disability or such. We have these things called the Spousal Support Advisory Guidelines. Now, there are just guidelines, and they're supposed to just advise, but our Court of Appeal has said if you're outside the guidelines, it's probably an error of law. And so it sets out your entitlement, once there is entitlement, what the quantum will and the length of time will be. So it'll say something like, if you're in a 10-year marriage, no children, the longest you'll get spousal is 10, the shortest is 5, and it's based on differences in income. If there's children, it's the low end, it's indefinite, but usually the highest end is going to be when the child ends school.
Right.
for the most
So that's why in this initial consultation, you should go and speak to somebody like yourselves, because these sort of things like I'm going to get cleaned out, I have to pay support the rest of my life, they're not true.
No.
And it's
Exactly.
the division is 50-50 and da-da-da-da-da. So a lot of the boogeyman isn't there. It's really you've got to get the facts.
Yeah, exactly. And for the other way as well, the person may think I can get away with paying my ex-wife who I've been married to for 25 years, you know, $200 a month for 2 years, and that's all disposal I got to pay, because my friend Johnny at the local donut store only had to pay his wife $200 for 2 years, not realizing that that was a 2-year marriage and the guy only made 20 grand a year. You know, that kind of thing. So
And all the free donuts.
Exactly. It's good for both parties to know where they stand.
Okay. So show up at the office, have some information. Often they don't. You just want to unload. Now, David, on previous shows, you say, okay, you know, you listen to the story and you hear it out, and they need to get it off their chest. As I said, often you're the first person that they're really wanting to unload on. But after that, it's probably better to go and speak to somebody else other than speaking to you, because that's a pricey way to get therapy, right?
Well, exactly. I recommend all my clients, if they're having some issues with the separation, a lot of times people just do, is like, you should seek your own counseling. I always tell them you don't need it, from what I can tell. Even if they might need it, I'll say I don't think you need it. But it's easier to talk to a therapist at $100 or $125 an hour than me at $375 or Leah's $250 or such. It's a lot, because we're not counselors. We don't have that kind of counseling training. We're, as lawyers, what you're telling me has no bearing on dividing the assets. So why are you telling me this? It's not going to have a bearing.
But on the flip side of that, there is quite a bit of hand-holding through this process.
Oh, yes. Oh, for sure.
So you must have learned some, you know, for
Absolutely.
lack of a better word, bedside manner.
Yes.
Or
Oh,
used
yeah,
to
for
dip
sure.
into the medical side.
Oh,
And
for sure.
often the emotions inform people's decision about the actual legal issues. So I think you sort of learn very quickly what the sticking points for certain people are, and that might have nothing to do with money. And you need to understand that in order to help the client through it.
So some people are just mad.
Oh, yeah,
And
for
they
sure.
just want revenge.
And what happens, the worst ones are the ones who want to come in and resolve it like 2 days after the separation.
Yes.
My theory is, and my rule of thumb is, that the family law files will settle when they're both parties are ready to do it, and they're both gotten over the relationship, the hurt and the anger. And when it's a lot easier when they become indifferent to the other party. When they still hate the other party means they still actually care. Once they become indifferent, then it's a lot easier to resolve things.
Well, I would disagree with that, because my parents have been divorced for almost 50 years, and there's still a lot of issues. I don't think sometimes it never goes away.
That's true.
Come on to your father. I say, really? It's like 47 years later. Get over it. Good thing they don't live here in Vancouver. They can't hear this. But the internet is a different story.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get into a whole lot more about children, division of assets. When we continue family law, we have Macquarie Hunter partner here, David Halkett, along with Leah Donaldson, associate. We'll continue next on The Law Show on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.